Welcome back to the Radio Row Review. Parker Holland owner Alex Chippert sitting down with former number 2 overall pick of the 1998 NFL Draft, Ryan Leaf. Ryan, thank you so much for being here. You are a former NFL quarterback. You are now going to be a commentator with the CW, but for now, you're here in New Orleans doing a whole lot of stuff. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. We took the year off last year. We just had a baby girl, and so the wife and I stayed home. First time we'd missed the Super Bowl in the last 10 years for Radio Row. So they got me pretty booked. I think we got 31 of these things here scheduled today. So they got me working.
Well, we appreciate you making the time.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And Ryan, you already mentioned that you're going to be a commentator for the Pac-12 this upcoming football season. What do you think is going on with the Pac-12 right now, and how do you feel really the Pac-12 is going to continue to be as an athletic conference?
Well, I think what Teresa Gould, the acting and commissioner of the Pac-12, is doing a heck of a job. You know, what she's been able to do when two of the teams just got left behind. I think a lot of people assumed that Washington State and Oregon State were just looking for a handout at some point. If the Big 12 would have showed up with that was never the case. The Pac-12 conference and its brand was going to be what was the really selling factor in all this. And I think you're going to find out here, and we're going to find out probably in the next week or so, exactly how much the Pac-12 brand means when the media rights deal starts to trickle out, and see what she was able to negotiate for the new incoming teams and what this Pac-12 conference will look like in 2026.
So you're returning to college football with this new era of super conferences. You're talking about the new Pac-12. What do you think the biggest changes between when you played the game, the 20-ish years since you left college football, and this new era that you're getting ready to call?
Well, you know, it's easy. I mean, it's the portal and it's the NIL aspect of things. I mean, it's changed everything. I mean, you got both coordinators from the national championship winning team, the Ohio State Buckeyes. One of them goes to a rival at Penn State. It does not matter now. It is a free-for-all on a market that depends on how much money you're going to get. You know, Washington State had the best quarterback in, I think, college football this year, in John Mateer. And Washington State just couldn't compete with the blue bloods out there and the NILs collectives that exist. And Oklahoma was able to snag them for, millions of dollars. And the chance of you playing NFL football is slim to none. It is. It's the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. And so if you have a chance to earn life-changing money and play college football to boot, then you got to go do it. And no one should begrudge them for doing that. So those are the biggest changes. The fact that you can pay the players, the realignment aspect of things where geographically it just doesn't matter about the wellness of the player. You're going to go play, and if you're Cal, you're going to go play at University of Miami on a Friday night and then return and have to go to Boston College the next weekend. That's just the way it's going to be, and no one really cares about that.
And Ryan, talking a little bit about the time that when you were a quarterback, what do you think the biggest piece of advice you would give to any quarterback now who's going into the NIL portal in terms of what to be looking for and how to take advantage of it?
Well, I think you just got to do what's best for yourself. And it sucks because, football is the last, ultimate team game where it takes every player on each side of the football working together to win. And so that's hard to do, to do what's best for yourself. Ultimately, to try to put yourself on a situation where it's about team. And so that's hard. But that's the advice I would give them, because, like I said, the chance of you playing in the NFL is just absolutely the slimmest of odds that exist out there.
Well, you were lucky enough to get that chance, obviously. Luck had very little to do with it. You were the number 2 overall pick because you were one of the best in the world at it, and you ended up going to the pros, and now you are kind of a mentor to some of these younger quarterbacks. You've been on record about your relationship now with Jim Harbaugh and talking with Justin Herbert. We were curious, have you named the group chat that you talked with Rich Eisen about? Is there a name for that group chat yet?
You know what? I haven't put it in there as anything yet. I think Rich Eisen and Chris Brockman make me laugh when they think about it. I don't necessarily think it's just Jim and Justin.
Fair enough.
It's the guys that I chat with.
Well, we were just curious about that whole relationship, because you've talked about your relationship with Jim Harbaugh. How has that relationship evolved since he's come back to the pros? Because he's obviously been very excited. It's just been a great year for him.
Well, yeah. Well, he was my backup quarterback in San Diego, if you can believe that. When I was there for my 3 years, he taught me a lot. He taught me how to be a professional when I was certainly far from it my rookie year. And then Of course, over the last 10 years with me being in the broadcasting world calling college football games, our interaction started to become more as the broadcaster and a coach. And that's just continued to influence, our relationship. So I love him to death. I owe him a lot, and I know he's the right guy for the job there in Los Angeles, and he's got one of the best quarterbacks in all of the NFL at his disposal. I was shocked they got beat like they did against the Houston Texans. But, hey, everybody's got to experience the playoffs for the first time with a new head coach and everything like that. And I think next year they'll come back a much different-looking football team and ready to get back there and this time win.
And speaking of year 2 for Coach Harbaugh and the Chargers, what do you think Coach Harbaugh's goal is going to be in terms of culture building for that team going into next season?
Well, I think losing builds culture pretty quick in a situation like that. You take it on the chin, you're humbled pretty quickly. I think they're going to have to improve a little bit on the defensive back end in the draft. And I do think there is plenty of draft capital with safeties and nickel type guys in this year's draft. And then I think they got to hit the free agent market pretty good. Not so much for the starting side of things, but more about the depth of the team. Because I do think when the injury struck this team this year, they struggled a little bit with the depth, next man up mentality. And if they can just be deeper, and there's no quit in them, because Jim Harbaugh and that culture just doesn't allow for that.
I love that. I want to come back to the draft and the offseason, like the free agency market, but I do want to come to your hoodie because I am curious. Talk to us about your radio show, The Last Mile, just our audience who wouldn't be too familiar with it being stuck in central New York.
Well, it's based around a foundation that was founded about 13 years ago around educational programming in prisons. And it's usually labor-intensive jobs that are available, welding, things like that it's a very difficult hire once you get out, and the transformation with that. And what The Last Mile did is they brought programs in around technology and audio-visual production, things that they can tangibly, when they get out, jump into. You learn coding and being able to walk into a place or even start your own business with your own website and then doing and producing your own content. That's what everybody wants to do these days. There's podcasts everywhere. If you have a voice, and someone who's spent time in prison certainly has a very unique perspective and a voice that I think can be incredibly helpful and change lives. And so they established a radio show on Sirius XM and made me the host about 6 months ago. And that's been an incredibly purposeful one for me, having spent 3 years in prison myself, understanding that, being able to walk in. I was in San Quentin just a couple weeks ago in Northern California talking with some of the individuals that are part of the program in The Last Mile. And, you can just see there's hope that's been made available to them. And prison is one of the things that hope just disappears with, and they're starting to give this back to them. And that's more than anybody can ask for.
It is such a cool program, Ryan. And where do you think you see The Last Mile going in the next couple of years, and where would you like it to go overall?
Well, I think it's got an incredible trajectory. I hope it's in every prison that is available to have it. I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you are an individual that works in the justice reform aspect of things, locally, federally, whatever it is, if you're not preparing the justice-impacted individual to get out and contribute to society. The recidivism rate in our country is unreal. We are the most heavily populated prison population in the entire world. And so if that's the case, we have to do something different. What we've done over the last 50, 100 years clearly hasn't been the answer. So this has to change. You have to rehabilitate. And I'm seeing a lot more of facilities, not only say correctional facility and rehabilitative center. That's a huge part of it. And that just may be a little thing in terms of verbiage and stigma changing that's going to be effective.
Well, with you've been very open about your struggles coming out of the league and just the way that came down. What specifically do you wish had been in place that you want to help get there when you were working on turning yourself around?
I think the programming that's in place with what The Last Mile does is a huge shift and change, and I think that's evolving. I do think that the stigma around those that are incarcerated, like you shouldn't be judged for your worst moment. You know, it isn't something that has to define you. You are the sum of all the parts of your life. And so I think stigma is a huge hurdle that has to overcome everything. And I would have wished I'd been more open-minded and understanding of those. I think when people talks about somebody who's a felon or a drug addict, it's immediate in a negative context, and it's understandable. But to understand the science, the medical aspect of things, especially with substance abuse, I mean that's where stigma comes into play. And so, if I do anything over the next 50 years of my life, it's going to be to just shine a light on mental health and substance use disorder, and try to change the optics of it, so more people can flourish like I've been able to do over the last 10 years.
Well, Ryan, you have managed to flourish, and you've talked about a lot, just the struggle coming down from leaving the league. I do want to then turn it back to this new generation of players who are under arguably more scrutiny than ever with the rise of social media. What would your advice be, especially with a quarterback class that is already under such heavy criticism in this 2025 NFL draft, that are already being picked apart just like every other one before them, but arguably even at a stronger level? What would your advice be to them for dealing with the level of pressure that is on them in today's game?
You signed up for it. That's the truth. I mean, if you don't want to deal with it, you shouldn't have played the most important position in all professional sports. And so you have the ability to control three things: your attitude, your behavior, and your effort. Okay, and that's it. You frankly think you can control so much more. But if you control those three things in a positive and healthy way, you're going to be successful, because you're talented enough to be in this place. So if your attitude's good, your attitude around that, which contributes to the behavior you exhibit, and then if you work harder than anybody else, there's nothing that anybody can say that is derogatory in any way, shape, or form. So, I had the great responsibility Friday night to speak to all of the participating players in the Senior Bowl in Mobile. Incredible opportunity for me. I don't know if that can be more purposeful or more impactful than to talk to the guys that are in the same seats that I was 25 years ago, getting ready for the NFL draft, and how much control they will not have, and they think they will because of what their agents are saying or what other things are going on. You just have to add to those three things I talked about, and you will be a success. And it was really pretty an amazing night for me to be able to give back like that.
And then one last question for you, Ryan. What is your Super Bowl prediction? Who do you think is going to win?
Well, I mean, we've seen this film before, right? I mean, it's the team that wins these games, the team that has shown us every single time. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, Philly's got the better roster, I think. I think that defensively they do a better job because they only have to rush 4 to be as dominant as they are. But I don't care. The idea that you are 17-1 in, or if you won 17 consecutive games in one-score games, makes you weak or something. Like, that's not if that was basketball or baseball, it would be seen as the strongest thing you have going for your team. Like, you know how to close, you know how to win. That's what this team does. So Kansas City wins this game by 3 points, 31-28.
Ryan Leaf, Pac-12 analyst on the CW, the Last Mile Radio Show. Ryan, thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks for having me, guys.